This is the Classic Auto Mall Show. Broadcast from the studios inside the Classic Auto Mall in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Just 1 hour west of Philadelphia at Pennsylvania Turnpike exit 298. Featuring nearly 1,000 classic, vintage, and barn-find vehicles for sale under one climate-controlled roof. Now, here's your host, Classic Auto Mall president and the man with all the toys, Stuart Howden.
Good morning. Gosh, it feels like we've been off a week. Have we been off a week?
Yeah.
I think we were. We skipped a week
because some people on the DL.
The injured reserve list.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, no, you were at Disneyland. You were at Disneyland.
Yeah.
No, I was
DL.
Disney World.
Oh,
Disney
World.
It was the whole world.
Excuse me.
And by the way, we did post a couple of archive episodes. So
good.
That's right.
always check. When you're missing an episode, sometimes we have one or two that you might have missed from years gone by.
We haven't done an episode without a guest in so long. We wouldn't know what to talk about. I think. So real quickly before we get to our wonderful guest, how many cars in inventory, JR?
973.
I can't. I have to recuse myself again because
You are such a cheater.
That's why you turned it upside down. I'm sorry.
There's a reason that I turned it upside down. When the teacher passed out the papers and she turned it upside down, that was mean you weren't to touch it until she told you to touch it.
So I win by default?
You win by default. 939 is what we have in here.
Oh, you've been a little busy.
Well, no, actually, what's interesting? We have the consignments really slowed down because the weather. It's just one of those things when the weather gets a little hinky, people say, I'll bring my car in next week, and then something comes up, and then it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever.
Well,
our consignment requests are through the roof, where people telling us that they're bringing cars. So
We had a couple of warm days, but it was rainy.
It's rain. It's all rain.
We know it's going to all hit at once. So.
Yeah.
Always does.
We're ready.
Yes, we are. We are always ready. Let's get to our guest before we too much more jibber jabber going on here. We're welcoming today Tom Young from up in. Are you in Connecticut? Is that?
I'm in Hudson, New York.
Hudson, New York.
Valley.
That's right. And the Hudson. I like that part of the world. That's a neat part of the world. And,
Well, everybody else seems to be coming up here in droves. So,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I tell anybody that lives in anywhere that's cool and quaint and quiet, shut up about it. Don't tell people how great it is.
Yeah, the roads are horrible up here. Not not curvy, all that other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, Tom, master Ferrari mechanic, restorer, blogger. You got into the blogging kind of backwards, right? You just kind of wanted a place to kind of record your thoughts and.
Yeah, I was working with a guy who was teaching me all sorts about vintage Ferrari, and I needed a place to put all this stuff. And my background, I went to have a photography degree, so I was taking pictures. I had, this thing called the World Wide Web. I said, well, this is perfect. I could take pictures. Digital cameras. In the old days, we would take stuff with film cameras and wait for it to process. And now you had digital cameras that could it was cheap. It was easy. So I started putting it there just to keep notes because I can't remember all this stuff.
Right.
So that's how it all started.
It's amazing what we've done with not only photographs on the web, but now with YouTube and anybody can do anything. I went to the doctor the other day and he said, I'm not putting your results up because I don't want you to call Dr. Google. But that's
right.
But that's the case anymore, that people are self-diagnosing everything, which is kind of cool. Like if your refrigerator stops working, it's kind of cool if you can say, oh, look, I can just replace this little plug here and that'll fix it. But you have to be careful with that. And I'm sure in your world, what you don't want to do is somebody amateurishly getting into a car and doing more harm than good.
Sure. I mean, I used to say that, we call it YouTube University.
Right.
You could look at it on YouTube, but it doesn't necessarily mean how tight do you turn it. And sometimes guys just don't realize the touch or the feel for this stuff. And
Sure.
I learned a lot of it through an old timer that taught me the feel for it. When we used to, Ferrari didn't have shop manuals. So when I would ask my mentor, Francois Sicard, I would say, well, how tight am I supposed to tighten this bolt? And he would say tight, or it'd be really tight. And so I had to calibrate what tight was and what really tight was. And that's kind of how you learn how to do it. And now, with more data available, you can then translate that to, foot pounds. But there is still a feel for, obviously a 10 millimeter nut is not going to be tightened down as tightly as something with a 14 millimeter,
Right.
on the flats. But a guy who's never done it before, just, well, then what is that? It'll just keep going until it strips.
Until it strips,
So,
yeah, which is the worst thing in the world for in any language, in any car, right?
Sure.
Nothing worse than that. And of course, there are guys who think that they know how to do things and they don't, and that can cause more damage than harm. And it's got to be a shame when you have to tell a guy that he made it worse than it was before if he'd have just brought it to you.
What I did was I kind of, there was this advertiser in New York that used to say an educated consumer is our best customer.
Right.
And I felt like it helped me because I wasn't necessarily showing you how to, what I did picture in a blog about water pumps as I started to make a career out of this. I was showing them what was going on, like what the process was. Not that I expected some of these guys to just go in their garage and start fixing their Ferrari. Sure. But when they brought their car to a shop, they would say, are you doing it this way?
Exactly.
Or I understand why it's a 6-hour process. I understand that because Tom says you have to pull the radiator out. You have to pull the, the hood off. You have to take half the engine apart to get to this part. That helped them understand why. It wasn't just like, oh, well, that's a $6,000 repair. Sure. And they understood why it cost that much.
Exactly. And an educated consumer, whether they come to you or another Ferrari mechanic, is a good consumer for everybody. It's good for everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
And
no, it doesn't ruin the cars. You don't get these cars that are all beat up and poorly repaired.
We're all stewards of these cars anyway. I mean, if you take any of these classics, these beautiful cars that we're just temporary holders of them, and someday they're going to go to somebody else, and they deserve to be well maintained. And we see a lot of places that cars that aren't well maintained, and especially in the lower end Ferrari market, the 308s and the Mondials, and man, some of those were just beat to death. And it's surprising that they're back still on the road. Of course, not without writing a fairly big check, I would imagine either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting some of those cars in. I mean, I try to focus on V12 Ferraris, but they're still cheaper ones. There's still the 400 GTs, which I'm starting to get a run of them.
Right.
I think it's like almost shot myself in the foot. I shoot videos and talk about fixing them, and all of a sudden I got guys sending me from around the country. Can you fix my 400? I got one of those too. And you're seeing a couple of these cars that are just kind of when they were cheap. I mean, 400s were $15,000 cars.
Yeah.
And now they're pushing into the $75,000, $85,000, $90,000 cars. Yet still not as expensive as another Ferrari, but they're fixed at the same cost and the same complexity.
Right. So, well, the 308's the same way. I mean, if you think about the 308 Ferrari, pretty interesting that it was more of a looker than a goer. I guess back in the day, but most people that bought them would buy them in the $20,000-$25,000 range, and then of course the first thing they would do is go to the mechanic, and that'd be another $25,000 that you'd put in it to a car that still only worked $25,000.
Right.
So,
but I like the 308s. I mean, I joke about it. I tell people all the time, Ferrari didn't really make a slow car. Right. I think what happens is if you compare it to modern cars, a Camry can outrun a 308.
Right.
But yet, it doesn't drive like a 308.
Exactly.
I mean, a 308 is low. It feels fun. It might not be super fast, but everything today. I mean, you buy any modern four-door sedan and it's going to outrun anything from the 70s. But it's about the feel. It's about the clickety-click of the shifter. Right. It's about all those little things that are so Italian. But they still suffered. I mean, I remember 308s were $15,000 cars. Right. It's like the Jaguar E6 XJ6.
Yeah, yeah, they just give away
a Jag for $5,000 bucks. It's like, well, yeah, but
guess what?
You have to fix it. Yeah.
Well, and I would argue that you could take a 308 and a 288 GTO to a gas station, and more people would flock around the 308 because that's more.
Or they would know the difference.
Yeah, we would had no idea of the difference. Right. That's the conundrum that I'm in right now. Do I buy a California Ferrari because I can afford a much newer one than a 575 Maranello or a 599 GTB? Because and then the purist and the whole, I don't know, it makes you crazy. Yeah. You can overthink it.
You could, yeah. I mean, I think that all Ferraris have this, and I get guys that contact me and want to buy their first Ferrari, and sometimes it's just scratching a niche.
Right.
I mean, you might buy that California and just say, this is it. This is all I need.
Sure.
I'm perfectly happy with it. And it is funny. I mean, you could probably drive a Mondial and people think, oh, wow, Ferrari, that's got to be expensive. Well, no, it's a $30,000 car.
Yeah, it's cheaper than your Camry.
It's that brand. Branding is really, Ferrari is one of the most recognizable brands in the world. Yeah. So you drive one with a prancing horse, most people, and I'd probably say 70% of the world just see the Ferrari brand.
Yeah, they don't.
Then the other percentage knows, this is a Mondial or that's a 308 or that's GTB or 270, whatever.
Well, it's like the shields on the fenders, the Scuderia shields that everybody wants to have now. It's almost like they're not even an option ananymore. Everybody's going to get the shields because you got to have the shields. And then, of course, you see the guy who puts the stickers on there, too.
Yeah.
Just doesn't want to.
And then they're the same ones that have the shoes, they got the pants, they got the hat, they got I don't think I have any Ferrari. I don't need to wear anything. Right. Don't anybody send me any of that stuff because I refuse to wear that stuff.
Now, let's get your. What do we do? Oh, there. Let's get your address and we'll put that out there. But it's funny.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I bought a pair of Puma Ferrari shoes at the the outlet mall for Puma, and what did I do? I never wear them because I'm like, I'm not going to wear those. I feel kind of silly,
Yeah.
But anyway, we get a few Ferraris in here from time to time. It's not our bread and butter, but more and more people are becoming interested in the brand because the exclusivity of it, like you said. I mean, if you look at the difference between what Harley Davidson did and Ferrari did, Ferrari could have had the same outcome that Harley did. They could have started making too many cars, saturated the market. Everybody that wanted one got one, and before you know it, it's not exclusive. Ferrari's was smart enough, and I know they've increased their production, a little bit since this time, but certainly interesting that they didn't oversaturate the market, or didn't appear to anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of studies about the decline of Harley Davidson compared to other things and brands and Ferrari. I mean, Ferrari has kind of changed. Not only did they really support that brand, but they're in Formula One. They are also making cutting edge technology cars. I mean, Harley Davidson's trying to do that with electric bikes, but they're missing the customer base and understanding what the customer base is. Unfortunately, that customer base is aging. Right. So it's like I always tell people all the time. It's like, guys don't want to drive their dad's cars. Right. They don't want to drive their grandfather's car. Exactly. So you have to accept that there's a certain era that will age out. I mean, you and I would never buy. I mean, we think Duesenbergs are beautiful.
Right. But it's not our thing.
I wouldn't buy one.
No.
I mean, I can appreciate them, but I wouldn't go running out for an ice cream in a Duesenberg.
No.
But the thing is, it's another era. It's another generation. And that taste changes. What Ferrari's been able to do is I've met guys who own new Ferraris. I mean, and meaning in the last 10, 15 years, they don't even know that there was a 50s Ferrari.
No idea.
They don't even know. Yeah. You show them a picture of a 275 GTB, they're like, oh,
what is that?
When did they have no idea what it is? And it's just because it's generational, but they've been able to continually grow that brand because they look to the next generation. They're constantly supporting and getting. So guys in their 20s have posters of Ferraris on their wall. They're not Testarossas, right? But they're Ferraris.
Yeah, it's interesting that the market for those, like you said, not wanting to drive. Even if your dad drove something kind of cool, my dad had an E-Type Jaguar when he was going through that midlife crisis thing, and it was a horrible car, and rain came through, and cold in the winter, and going to school, and all that. And there was no way in heck I ever wanted one of those cars because I have bad memories of it. Right.
And they're still great cars.
Absolutely.
I think that, I have customers, and I'm starting to see that now. Is that my customers? I was the young guy when I started. I think it was in my late 20s, early 30s when I got my car, and I was the young kid that was trying to learn everything and maybe an anomaly. But now I've overnight turned into an old guy in this business. And now what's happened is I'm having customers that are now in their 30s and 40s. Now they are still celebrating and owning these older cars, but I definitely recognize that's a diminishing subset of Ferrari owners. People say, oh, you should be working on the new ones because that is where the market goes. I don't need that much to just keep one guy employed.
Right.
But the thing is, I definitely see that if I go to a Ferrari show, the new guys are certainly the younger guys, and the older guys are all the gray-haired guys who are owning these older Ferraris, and we are aging out.
Sure.
And it is going to be curious to see where it goes in 10 years or 20 years.
Yeah.
Are these all going to become museum pieces?
I hope.
Are they going to become Duesenbergs?
Yeah, you don't know. And Duesenbergs at one point in time had gone down in value significantly. Early 2000s, you could buy one for $400,000 range, a Murphy-bodied Duesenberg Roadster, and you think, wow, was giveaway money back then, or now, relative to most of them are bringing $2 and $3 million. But then you got Ferraris that are, bringing crazy amounts of money. I mean, the Indianapolis Museum selling their Ferrari for $36 million.
The LM.
Yeah,
but those cars are no longer cars.
Right.
I mean, they are. Fabergé eggs.
Yeah.
What you're putting them on display. You're showing them that you have taste. I mean, how many yachts do you need to own? How many houses do you need to own? It's just you're basically just it's a collection of things that you have.
Sure.
And at this level of wealth, and we're not talking $500,000 cars. We're not talking about $1 million cars. We're literally talking $20-30 million cars. Those, I think that those collections are based on just symbols of wealth, or the fact that you can put your money and park it in some kind of asset class that doesn't will probably, if you watch it, will continue to increase in value.
Well, how many garage doors were glass 25, 30 years ago? And now you see lots of them that are glass. The guys want you to know what they've got
sure.
in their garage. And of course, the younger kids seem to be gravitating towards the McLarens and the Lamborghinis maybe a little bit more. It seems that the 20-somethings that have money or wealthy families or whatever are kind of gravitating towards those. But the Ferrari's still there. It's hadn't gone anywhere,
Yeah, and I think that, the statistic was that from like the late 60s, the total production of vintage Ferraris that I work on, which I call carbureted V12 Ferraris, was like 6,000 cars. Ferrari exceeds that production in a year.
Yeah.
So if everybody wanted a vintage Ferrari, there's not enough to go around.
Right.
So it's not like, we're going to lose this whole. Ferrari is still making cars that people want in the future.
Right.
And there are. I mean, I don't know so much as the hybrids, but we'll have to see where that goes.
Yeah, I'm a car guy. Don't ask me about hybrids and electrics. I'm not the right guy to ask.
Right. And I'm a mechanic.
Right.
And I really worry about the fact that how are we going to fix this? Now, we said this about fuel injection. We said this about computerized. We said this about plastic parts. But those things are still hard manufactured goods that we can either 3D print and all this other stuff. What I see, and we also see with LaFerrari and things like that were the original hybrids that are now 10 years old. God. And there are no batteries available for them anymore.
Yeah, what do you do?
And so what happens with every subsequent hybrid battery that will age out simply from age? I mean, nobody drives their new Ferraris. I mean, we're looking at these Ferraris that are like selling for 300 miles, 1,000 miles, and 4,000 miles is considered high mileage for some of these really crazy cars. And it's just like, well, that battery is going to be garbage in 5 years anyway.
Then what are you going to do? And the other the other thing, people don't understand why people only put a certain amount of miles on their car. There is value based doing that, but a lot of guys what they don't realize is the guy who has a Ferrari LaFerrari also has 15 other cars. Yep. You can only put so many miles per year on a car like that. So that's why they have low mileage on them. People just wonder that that they're doing nothing with them, and some do. Some mothball them and hope for the roll of the dice, and hopefully they get more expensive or valuable, and that's their thing. And hey, good for them. I have
my car here. There's the red one back here. That's mine. I struggle to put 1,000 miles on it a year because I have two other cars. I've got customer cars I got to drive. It's like woe is me, but at the same time, I have to drive other cars during my week. Like right now, I've got a car that I got to put 20, 30 miles on just to test drive it. So on a sunny day, I'm waiting for a sunny day to take that customer car out for a drive so my car doesn't get driven. So I struggle to put mileage on it. Right.
Well, I think we're all the same way. And you get in the one car and you realize that the garage door opener's in the other car and the phone charger's in that one and your sunglasses are in that.
Yep. You got a dead battery. You got, this one doesn't have an inspection sticker on it.
I'm going for the rusty old Yukon that I can throw anything in the back. I can throw an open can of paint back there and it doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So you started basically 1999 was kind of your aha moment of getting into this world.
I bought that car in 1999
in boxes, right? Or in
boxes and pieces. That car was, and I met my mentor Francois Sicard, a few years before, and I was at his shop, and I was a big Porsche guy. I mean, I had a 911. I was taking a DE events. I was doing all sorts. So it was a 72, and I thought Porsches were was the coolest thing in the world. I was really into Porsches. Always, and that was the kind of like the poster car when I was in high school. But when I met Francois and I walked into a shop and all it was filled was with vintage Ferrari, and I was just like, whatever's going on here is way cooler than what Porsche's had to offer. At least I thought for that moment. Sure. And I said, well, then I got into that rabbit hole, like, well, how do I get one of these things? And just like, any Ferrari, it's like, you don't have to buy, they're $500,000, even at that point, they were $100,000, $200,000 cars, which of course I didn't have. So I started to look, and Francois said, well, you could buy one of these 2+2s. They're practically the same. They're just not as popular and they're cheaper. And I started to hunt and found this one. in Virginia that was just apart in pieces. And I said, hey, I think I found a car. Would you help me put this together? And he says, yeah, I'll help you put it together. There are no manuals, so you kind of needed someone to kind of show you how to put this together, right? So he graciously took me under his wing, and I kind of feel like I served my apprenticeship with him, where I did this car, and what I thought was only going to take a couple of years ended up taking 8 years. Right. And in that journey of working with him, I realized that I think I'd rather do this for a living. I was working in Manhattan. I had a day job, and I said that I just really got into doing it, and the reward of working on a car and watching it go from point A to point B was just a thing. I mean, I'd always worked on my own cars as a kid. I mean, but doing this was just something really cool, and it was handmade. And there was no instructions and all this stuff. And it just kind of made me change my life.
Well, but you had a pretty good day gig at the time, right? You were an audio engineer for Letterman?
I worked for Letterman. And that's kind of like the cross-pollination. I mean, Letterman was into Ferraris. And he also, and the way Francois and I knew each other was that we kind of worked for the same boss. I mean, he worked on Dave's cars, and I knew Francois. And, it was like this whole thing. So, work for Dave, whenever there was off time, we would chat about cars, and then I would go to Francois on the weekends or on Fridays and work on it. So I was always in this whole world of cars. But at the same time, like I said, I went to art school with study photography. So I ended up in television just because of the connections I made through school, and just fell into television and was really enjoying it. And I could have stayed there forever. I mean, I would probably be working for Stephen Colbert right now if I had stayed. But I didn't. And I just said, now's the time to make the move. And everything kind of fell in place. And I told Dave, I think it's time for me to go. I don't think he was really happy about it, but at the same time, you got to do it.
But he's a car guy, so he had to kind of understand.
Kind of did.
He kind of sort of.
Dave is still the king.
He's the king.
You're leaving him, so it's just like
nobody leaves me.
Well, that's a whole other story. At the same time, I did what I did.
Sure, I got to imagine though, being the audio engineer. I mean, all the great artists that you probably got to work with over the years. How wonderful is that? I mean, I know there was mundane stuff where you're just mixing voices, but
what I did was my job was what they call second audio. So I was stage audio. Right. So my job was to basically liaison with all the bands that came in. So a semi would show up, and we basically put on a rock show every day. Wow. And then we'd set it up, tear it down, put it away, load the truck. Next day, another truck would go in. Wow. And then my other job was to deal with all the wireless microphones that were involved on the stage. So anybody who wore microphones, I had to put them on. So before the show would start, I'd be going up to the dressing room. So I used to tell people that I would meet all the stars that would be sitting at Dave's desk, and I'd have to meet them all, and that was my occupational hazard. Was I actually had to go up there and talk to them, put microphones on and run them up, their dresses.
Awkward, a little awkward, stuff. Or not.
I was kind of like a doctor. I was like a gynecologist. Like, it sounds like a cool job, but it's actually not that fun. But the thing is, in my 20s, it was a blast. I mean, it was got to work with all the rock bands, and you got to do all that stuff backstage. And again, it was a great gig. I just think that I liked working on Ferraris more.
Right. What was the top of Letterman's collection at that time? What would have been his piece de resistance?
Well, he was building his collection about the same time I was working for him. So Francois was advising him on everything. So he bought like a 500 super fast. He bought a 400 Super America. He had a 330 GTS, GTC. I mean, he bought like everything. Right. I mean, and he bought them right. I mean, I remember Dave, I was working on getting my car, and he had bought a Lusso, a 250 Lusso, and I'm pretty sure he paid $150,000 for the car. Because knowing what Dave paid for the car, I was trying to do the calculation. To me, it was like, could I have reached for that? Because I mean, quite honestly, with all numbers said, because now it's a long time ago, I bought that car for $30,000.
Wow, which was a lot of money back then.
Which was, I borrowed the money. I borrowed, I think, 10 grand of it, and I probably overpaid, because you could have bought a running driving car for $40,000. Right. But I didn't have another 40. I didn't have $40,000, so I bought that. But, and I also know that at the time that I was buying that car, a Lusso and parts and pieces that I heard rumor was available was $75,000. Right. And I could have donated both kidneys, and I still wouldn't come up with $75,000. And here's Dave writes a check for $150, and he's got a running driving Lusso. And I was like,
Oh,
God, I wish I
man.
had that kind of money.
You're kind of living vicariously through him, but you're probably also going, dadgummit, I'd like to have that.
Yeah.
Of course,
I'll never get a Lusso. It's like, but it was just so funny because he invited me up. We went for a ride in it when he first got it, and I was just sitting there going, "Man, it's so easy to just write that check and buy this damn car."
Well, and especially the kind of money that he was making. Obviously, that was a nothing check. That was throwaway money. So
but there were times that he did. There were times that he didn't. He wouldn't pull the trigger.
Sure.
I mean, we had a short wheelbase that had come up, and I remember trying to tell him, you just buy it, and I know that at the time they were worth around 900 to $1 million. I think he could have gotten it for 900,000.
Right.
And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. It was just too much money.
Yeah. And
it's like that car now is worth $8 to $10 million.
Exactly. Of course, like you said, none of us had a crystal ball to know what it was. And,
who knew?
And the thing that you said, which was interesting a few minutes ago, talking about Porsches, is that all of us growing up in our generation didn't really know much beyond the 911. Okay, there was a 914. Maybe we knew about the 912, but most of us didn't know about the 550s, Spiders, and the 906s, and the all these different things that were really cool Porsche that probably you could have bought for the same money you bought a 72 911 for, but you just weren't aware of them so much.
Sure, and all of I've been doing this long enough to remember all these cars were relatively inexpensive, but it wasn't like it was money that we had just sitting in our pockets. Right. I mean, I remember in the 90s, a 356 sunroof coupe. I mean, a 356 sunroof coupe.
Right.
I think it was a 59. It was $4,500.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's what they were.
They were just Volkswagens, right?
But I didn't have $4,500. You know what I mean? It was like, nowadays it looks like it's a genius, but it's back then it wasn't like that's what the price was. I mean, my 911, I paid $2,200 for a long 911. That's what they were.
Yeah, and that, again, like you said, it was a car. I mean, it was hard to justify it to anybody who was looking from the outside in at you, and then not to mention that just having the money and then the upkeep and parts and stuff were not probably as readily available as they are now. So it wasn't like you could just go down, and order something online. There was no online.
Sure. I mean, we were lucky. I wonder if that still translates today. I mean, there are cars that I think you could buy with relatively low money, and they will appreciate well. But when they cost so much, it's really hard to see. Like if I'm spending, $800,000 for just a production car,
right?
Will that still be worth $800,000 in 5 years?
And maybe it's going to be worth $200,000. And then you think, that was idiotic. What was I thinking? Of course, again, we try not to buy cars as an investment, but it always is in the back of your mind when you're when you're buying a toy, when you're buying not something for transportation. You're not trying to buy a minivan to get the kids to school. You're buying something that's not practical. And when you buy something that's not practical, you want to somehow make it justifiable that, this was going to be where I can enjoy it and get my money back. But to your point, you talk about taking a cruise or an African safari, you don't get 50% of your money back when you get home.
When you get all those things that people spend money on for enjoyment, it's supposed to make you happy.
Right.
If counting your money makes you happy, then keep your money.
Keep your money, yeah.
It's like, because a lot of these guys, I have all different types of customers. I have some customers that have tons of money, and they barely drive their cars, but they have pictures of their cars on their phone. And you know what they're showing people at the board meetings? Pictures of their cars.
Exactly.
They're not showing their stock portfolio because that's boring.
Yeah, who cares about that?
And the thing is, they could lie about the prices, but he's the coolest guy at the board meeting because he's got a picture of a cool car. And some guys enjoy it that way. Some guys enjoy them driving and taking them out on a Sunday morning. It's just everybody has a different way, but it's about enjoying what the fruits of your labor, for lack of a better term.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're right though. I remember being at an event that had a lot of wealthy CEOs and all that, and they found out I was in the car business. Nobody wanted to talk business or to anybody else but me. I was like the center of attention, and I was like, let me tell you about, because the car guy, I mean, that's the thing. I always tell people, be careful of doing what you love, like with this, what do you do for a living? Oh, I sell classic cars. Oh, wow. Well, it's still maybe it should be pallets, you know?
Yeah.
I don't have any passion for
I would have these conversations with people back when I was working at television, and I don't want to tell people, because it's the same thing, I'm sure, with you. It's like, you don't want to end up talking. I mean, look, we love cars, but sometimes at a cocktail party, you don't want every dude to come up to you and just ask you for advice about what car they should buy.
Which is what happens.
Right. So for me, it was always like, well, what do you do for a living? Oh, I work in television. Oh, well, what show do you work? You know, where do you work? Oh, I work at CBS. And you're trying not to, like, because you don't want to say, oh, cool, Letterman, because the next question you have is like, can I get tickets?
Yeah.
You know, and
can
now
I
it's
meet
the same
him?
thing. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, I work on cars. It's like, oh, what kind of cars? You know, old cars, old Italian cars. Oh, what kind of old? Oh, Ferraris.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like I said, it's not it's there are worse things to have, but it is a funny curse that we have to deal with.
I tell my kids, just say dad's in used cars. That usually will push them far enough away. But you're right. It's funny when we were talking about what you did before. You said I was in television. You didn't say, hey, I work for because you're right, because you don't want to be the dominant of the, you know, the whole conversation becomes around you at the whole cocktail party, and that kind of ruins whatever the cocktail party was for, whatever that may be.
Right. And so I guess it's also just me. I'm not flashy. I tell people all the time, you know, I look at Ferrari shops, and I have guys who contact me from all over the world who want to see the car. I say, well, first off, just so you get this clear, I don't have a cappuccino machine, and I don't have a secretary that answers the door. You know, it's really fancy. I mean, you can't see a lot, but it's not really a fancy shop.
Sure. But
at the same time, you know, when you come to me, you're paying for me to work on your car.
Right.
You know, you're not paying for the cappuccino machine. You're not paying for all these people who are walking around and all this glitz and glamour and the tile floors and all this other stuff. And so, like, my clients kind of understand that that's kind of who I am. That's me. So I'm not flashy. I'm not going to say, oh, let me tell you what I do. You know, I own a Ferrari.
Right.
You know, I have quite an expensive collection. And it's not that important to most of them. And most car guys are kind of like that. We're not out there all the time.
Even the wealthy guys with large collections, you really sometimes got to pry it out of them of what they have and what they enjoy and all of that. And I like the fact that you have a working shop, that it's not, you know, you don't have a glamour shop and then a working shop. You know, it's just a working shop, and that's what it is.
Sure.
So a couple things. Website so people can find out what you do is Tom.
Yeah, it's Tom Tomy. I pronounce it Yang, but it is Yang in the spelling of it. So just to confuse everyone, it's TOMYANG.net.
Right.
But I also have, I've been doing YouTube videos. I've been doing the same thing. I think if you do a search these days, you almost get it close enough. If you do Tom Yang Ferrari, it'll probably pop up somewhere. It always has. I've been doing it for so long that it's like, I think Google's kind of got me on there.
They know your number.
Yeah, they know it. When you put 25 years of content, out there with blog posts and every week, in that matter, you're kind of outnumbering anybody else who's trying to do this stuff. So it shows up. Absolutely.
There's an interesting thing that I read real quickly. I know you've got things to do today. I read one of your blogs where you're talking about a client being at Cavallino and getting a 90.5 and not getting the score to get a platinum award, and going home and fixing all the things on the list, only to find out that he came back and got an 84 because once they get to a certain level, they stop counting. They stop looking for things that are wrong. Once you don't hit 97, that's kind of a moot point. Interesting that people, didn't think that through, or, because they're not going to mark everything that's wrong if you're at an 80, right?
Sure. No, you can't. I mean, they have 15 minutes to judge a car. So they're not there to if I get hired to go over a car, the first time I even consulted on that car, I spent an hour going over that car. So a judge, he's got 15 minutes to just do his job. And his job is just to tell you, are you a winner or are you a loser? Exactly. He's not there to tell you, this is what you need to do to make it, 100 point.
We're not giving you the roadmap. We're giving you the reward if you deserve the reward. And of course, platinum. And
it's a balance, because it's like there's a lot of subjectivity to it. There's a little intimidation to it. There's a whole level to it, which some guys just, when I read the comments, people were just like, oh, well, why would anybody do that? Well, everybody enjoys their car differently. Some guys show them, some guys drive them. It's different guys.
Platinum at Cavallino, though, has got to be in the top tier of awards that you can get in the automotive world, regardless, right? I mean, it's just... I think
Platinum, Cavallino Platinum is, in the Ferrari world, is pretty hard, because what it does is, it's probably the second, when you compare Pebble Beach. Well, Pebble Beach still uses the same rules. Right. But you get first, second, and third. You also had to be invited to Pebble Beach. Right. So that's a whole other level of trying to get an invite to show and then get judged. Cavallino, if you apply, you get in, and then you're then going for a platinum, which is 97 points or better. So if there's 5 platinum cars, they all get platinums, which are everybody gets a first place. There's a major award. So like of that group of 5 winners, then they might have something else they give them.
Right.
But like everybody, it's like everybody gets a first place, which is everybody gets a platinum. So if you have 10 people that are platinum worthy, they win. But it's still very difficult, as proven. I mean, I didn't promise that we were going to win platinum. I said we'll try our best because I was trying to prove, is it possible to take a very nice car and not restore it? Because a lot of these cars that show at Cavallino, they are restored fresh from the restoration shop with every single thing done from the very beginning. $500,000 to $1 million is spent on these cars. And then, of course, they should be able to win platinum. My view, and maybe my egalitarian point of view, is like, can a regular guy for a Ferrari owner have a really nice car? Can we do that without restoring the car?
Right. And that's tough.
That's what we've been chasing.
Very, very
it's been
difficult.
tough.
Yeah. Tom, such a pleasure having you on the show. We could go for hours as usual. It's 2 car guys just shooting the bull at the cocktail party here. But really, really, really appreciate you being on. If you get a chance, check out his website, Tom Yang, TOMYANG.net. And we'll love to have you on again because I'm sure we can talk more Ferraris and all kinds of other stuff. Oh, yeah, I forgot to ask you, what's your daily driver?
My daily driver is a Honda.
Yes, I love the more mundane, the better.
No, I got an Acura ILX. Is basically what I drive.
Well, that's not mundane then.
Well, but it's still a little, it's basically a Civic. But I need something that's real. I love reliability and practicality and good parts grab. Yeah, parts runner.
My favorite car that I ever had and the most reliable car was a Honda CRX SI in 1988. That car was just 6-speed or 5-speed, and it was bulletproof. And I think today, I wouldn't mind having that car back. It was easy to park. It was easy to get around. There's a lot of going for it.
In my world of Ferrari guys, they're always like, Tom, why do you drive this? I used to drive a Civic before. I mean, just a regular Honda Civic before I bought the ILX. And they said, why did you drive like a Mercedes, like an E-Class or something? I said, well, let me ask you a question. What does Mercedes air conditioning feel like?
Right.
Is it cold? Because in my Honda, it's cold. And what does air conditioning? What does heat feel like in a Mercedes? Is it hot? It's like. And you know what? The difference between the Mercedes Air and the Honda Air is it doesn't brake on a Honda.
Exactly. It's funny, the practical side of all of us, it certainly makes us, more in the normal range instead of some elitist, that we're all driving Bentley Mulsannes and all that. Sure. So anyway, again, thanks so much, Tom, for being on the show. And
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
The Classic Auto Mall has more than 1,000 vehicles for consignment in our huge 8-acre climate-controlled showroom. It's a real indoor mall. If you'd like to know all the advantages of buying and selling a car through consignment, the information is available on our website, or you can talk to a classic car specialist who can answer all your questions. It's easy, safe, convenient, and it doesn't matter where you are. We sell worldwide. See our huge selection of classic and collectible vehicles at classicautomall.com.
And we're back with the Classic Auto Mall show from the Classic Auto Mall studio in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. How's everybody today? Good?
Yep. Everybody's well. Yeah, it was great.
That was a great interview.
Great guest.
Yeah, he's great.
Very interesting.
We get so many. We're so lucky. Mm-hmm. Lucky is not the right term. We have Judy Stropas helping us get guests. And amazing. Her Rolodex is just, she gets everybody.
She's the center of the earth.
She really is the center of our earth anyway.
She is the spoke
of the automotive world.
The hub of the world.
Where did we sell cars this past 2 weeks?
Are you going through the map? Okay.
Kirkwood, Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Cape Coral, Florida, Hot Springs, Arkansas, Hamburg, Pennsylvania, Coatesville, Pennsylvania, Mullica Hill, New Jersey, Southport, Connecticut, Arabi, Louisiana, or Arabi, Livingston, New Jersey, Easton, Pennsylvania, Reading, Pennsylvania, Lake Bluff, Illinois, Heath, Massachusetts, Levittown, Pennsylvania, Newark, New Jersey, Bear, Delaware, Royersford, Pennsylvania, Essex, Connecticut, Rio Rancho, New Mexico. That sounds like a bad land.
Oh, I like that.
They're selling little half-acre lots.
Yeah, or a movie.
Yeah. Dracut, Massachusetts, Turnersville, New Jersey, Kingsville, Maryland, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, Tracy, California, Fort Benton, Montana, Felton, Delaware, Denver, Pennsylvania, Manchester, Michigan, Magnolia, Delaware, Elverson, Pennsylvania, McDonough, Georgia, Parkville, Maryland, Hamburg, Pennsylvania, Wellsville, Kansas, Orlando, Florida, ×3, cha-ching, Murrells Inlet, South Carolina.
Ooh, wow.
It was a lot.
No wonder the number was lower than I guessed. There was a lot of
Yeah, we sold a lot of cars. That's the yin and the yang of this whole thing. Is when we're really good at selling cars, it puts us low on inventory.
Yeah, we had a lot of car haulers pulling in.
Yeah, we did. It was busy. And it's funny. People buy cars. They don't care what the weather's doing there, as long as the weather's nice where they are. They're not thinking about the fact that, maybe you do need to think about that. And I'm not discouraging sales, but that if the weather's bad where the car's coming from, then there's opportunity for it to have, salt up underneath it or something like that. So you want to be careful of all that.
I have a quick story. I bought a Typhoon in Alaska in November, and they couldn't ship it because it was so cold that it has this plastic cladding around the outside that it would crack.
Really?
It was so cold, 20 below zero.
Wow.
So I waited till February till it warmed up to 20 above zero before it was shipped. So yeah, you got to be careful.
You got to be careful
about weather around the world.
Just be mindful of that. Did that cable just fall off?
It's all right.
I like when things fall apart. On
No problem.
Our TV.
We're all good.
Yeah. If we have to get another damn TV, I've just had enough of it. So new arrivals the past couple of weeks. How about the 1929 Overland Whippet 98 series sedan, black over brown, 35,000 actual miles. What does that work out to per year?
Yeah, nothing.
Diamond in the rough here, a rarely seen model. A very solid example. We were talking about with Tom Young on the show about future collectibles, and here's one right here. 2003 Honda S2000 Roadster, Silverstone metallic over red and black, 48,000 actual miles, 2-liter VTEC, double overhead cam, 4-cylinder. You think, that doesn't sound like much of an engine. No, that thing will go.
Yeah.
And it's that variable valve timing. So it has when you get up to that high RPM, it's the coolest sound and engine you've ever heard.
I don't think they're future collectibles. I think they're collectible now.
I think you're probably right. 6-speed manual transmission, brake upgrades, suspension upgrades, the whole 9 yards.
Yes.
How about this, the 1980 924 Porsche? Now you say, 924, they weren't very powerful. This one's a turbo.
Right.
And I don't even remember these cars. Do you remember the 924 turbo? You grew up in the Porsche world.
He grew up in the Holbert world, so he had one that he raced, so I knew about them. Yeah, but it's got that crazy little offset hood scoop that is just the coolest thing in the world.
And in the color on this thing, Inari silver and onyx green over tan is really different.
Inari silver, is that what they're calling it?
Yeah. Well, that's what
it is. It is. It's like a greenish silver.
It's really and it's onyx, Inari silver and onyx green.
Yeah.
So there's 2 greens or something. So how about the and this one's a double 2-liter as well. Single overhead cam, turbo, inline 4. This one we just sold, but it's still an amazing car. 57 Ford Thunderbird convertible. The market hasn't been great on the Ford Thunderbirds lately, but this one, Thunderbird bronze over bronze. Former John Staluppi, the collector down in Florida, you always see on barret-jackson. Collection car, 312 dual quad V8 car, so it's an E-code Thunderbird, and that's what makes it really special. Ford-O-Matic transmission, National First and Senior Award AACA, both tops, and stunning preservation.
Yeah.
This car was spectacular.
Amazing. And featured on your ABC segment on the news.
Yeah, that was, what was it, one tank full or a tank full?
Tank a trip. One tank trip, something like that.
Something.
It's on ABC. It's actually
One Tank Trips, yeah. It first aired April the 8th on 6abc.com is where you can find it now. The number 6, then ABC.com. The letter ABC.
Got it.
Dot C, that's a letter. O, letter, and M.
6ABC.
So if you bought that car, your car is a TV star.
It's a TV star, and how cool is that? So other new arrival, the 1967 Pontiac Firebird convertible in Verdoro green, which is really cool over black, well documented. Service records back to 1976. That's pretty cool. If you save all that stuff, folks, don't get rid of it. It's important. 326 cubic inch 2-barrel with a power glide. Interesting. So, that's the power glides were 2-speed automatics. So it's that was it.
That's it. Yeah.
There's no more. And but power glides, they use those in drag racing when people kind of used to make fun of power glide transmissions.
Right.
But the drag racers would use them because they would use them because they worked for whatever reason for them.
Classic Firebirds do not last long here, so if you're interested, be sure to check out the website.
They sell so quickly, it's hard to believe. And last but not least, the 1967 Oldsmobile 442 Holiday 2-door hardtop, Spanish red and provincial white over red, correct 400 cubic inch V8, correct Muncie M20, another AACA senior and junior.
Exactly.
Hemmings Muscle Machine feature car, and this is a rotisserie restoration. So what a wonderful, wonderful car. Don't forget our friends at Carlisle Auctions coming up April 24th through the 25th, 2025, in case you're listening to this in the future. You don't want to show up there on the wrong day. So that's 1 hour west of us. They're going to have 400 plus cars. Their website is carlisleauctions.com, and check it out. And we're going to be talking about one that we're going to be doing here as well, too.
Okay.
We're not talking about today.
Oh, I see.
We're going to talk about it soon. Also, our friends at Radnor Hunt, the Concours here in Malvern, Pennsylvania, coming up September the 5th through the 7th, 2025. And their website is radnorconcours.org. Last year's Best of Show, a 1931 Cadillac 452A V16 convertible sedan Fleetwood. Wow.
That's a mouthful.
And Best of Show Sport, 1965 Shelby GT350R.
It's one of the great events on the East Coast,
really
as far as I'm.
And it's at this beautiful farm. And, you know, their board of directors are some of the coolest guys.
They have some cool guys.
Features this year: Mercedes-Benz, and Moon
Wheels?
the car. No, Moon the car.
Moon the car. Okay,
Moon the car.
Got me.
Okay.
A little stumped.
A little stumped.
A little Jeopardy music there.
Sports features this year are the AC, so that's cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then vintage features: station wagons, shooting brakes,
all right,
and panel vans.
My favorite.
Nice.
Stuart, do you think we can get Steve to commit right now? I want to do the road rally ahead of time. They have. I've never done one where you have someone with a stopwatch and a map and navigate.
They're
and then
fun.
A driver.
They're a lot of fun to do. They really are, unless the weather's icky.
Yeah,
and then
which it can be in Radnor.
It could be. You never know.
50-50.
It's a 50-50.
So how about Steve? Let's do it.
Actually, it's better than 50-50.
You have to get up early, though. You have to get up really early for that.
Actually, it's better than 50-50. I think in the 20-something years that they've been holding this rally, 28 years, or holding the Concours, they've had 4 rain days.
Oh, okay.
You know, that were rain. So they have been very,
the last
very
3 years.
No, actually, last year was great.
No, it was good. It was beautiful.
Really
the year before was nice. And the year before that was crazy.
But what's so cool about the show is that regardless, the spectators still showed up, the participants still showed up, everybody, it was business as usual. Everybody's like, okay, that's just what it is.
Ferrari's out in the rain.
Ferrari's in the rain. So you got to love it. So when we return, we'll have our buddy Keith Martin on from Sports Car Market Magazine, and we'll talk about bring his blog to life. We'll see you in a couple minutes on the Classic Auto Mall Show.
Whether you want to buy or sell a classic, collectible, or special interest vehicle, you need to visit the Classic Auto Mall website for more information. If you're looking to buy, you can easily search our inventory of more than 1,000 vehicles on the web at classicautomall.com.
And we're back with the Classic Auto Mall Show from the Classic Auto Mall studio in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Coming back with our weekly feature. Joining us is Keith Martin from on the left coast. And we're bringing his blog to life, which is been a lot of fun. And I love your subject this week, Keith. Good morning, by the way.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
We've got good weather here. How about you?
Well, it's cold, but it's sunny, so we'll take it. We got a few of the cars out. I'm in the market for another car, apparently. I just didn't know it. You know, I have a problem that when all these cars show up, I want half of them. We had a Beck 550 Spider come in that is in this ice blue that's stunning that I can't keep my eyes off of. So we'll see.
Is that a $40,000 car?
This one is more than that, but normally they're $40,000 to $45,000. But this one is literally in the wrapper. I mean, it is practically brand new and got all the Porsche parts. It's the Volkswagen instead of the Subaru engine, which the purist I think like better, even though saying purist on a replica car is weird. But really an interesting car and a lot of fun. And of course, you know, finding parts for it shouldn't be too hard if you've got a good swap meet to go to, right? Look at that segue.
Look at that. That was perfect. So the swap meet out here, Stuart, is called Always in April. And so it's always the first weekend in April, and it's billed itself as the largest swap meet west of the Mississippi.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting. And swap meets are somehow surviving, although we can't quite figure out why. Because who wants to drag a bumper through the mud at Hershey, right?
Hershey's a little different.
Right.
The swap meet, this is its 59th year.
Wow.
And it's put on by a volunteer group. They used to have a few thousand cars. It used to be you'd wait all year to bring your car out to the swap meet to put it up for sale.
In the car corral, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, or all spread out through the whole thing.
Really?
And I have sold Roadrunners there, and I bought Izettas, and if you listed a car for sale, you got a prime spot and got to drive in early.
Oh, so worth your while.
Yeah, so $30 or $40, you list your car, and then of course what I'll never forget is the education I got about any car that I brought there.
Oh, well, wow.
The number of people that told me what was screwed up about my car was unbelievable.
There's a lot of experts out there, aren't there?
It's more than you could shoot at, although you'd like to shoot some of them.
Isn't that the truth? And what's funny is the guys we call the in mom's basement experts who are sitting in a folding chair in their sweatpants, and they're telling you everything that's wrong with a particular car, and half the time they're wrong.
Yeah.
So
half the time they've never owned one of those cars.
Never owned one of the cars, exactly, and never had any knowledge of them other than what they read on the internet, which is one of the things that we always talk about, is that the importance of realizing that the internet can, just because it says it on the internet does not make it so.
Well, Stuart, if I'm going to jump over to sports car market for a second, what we pride ourselves on is only printing stuff that we believe is absolutely accurate.
Sure. Yeah, you can't just wing it. You can't just say, well, we think it might be, or, we get so many people who definitively say they never made a Mustang and Chartreuse in 1967, and yet they did. So we find that as well, too. But going to these swap meets, the other side of it is there's a lot of guys who can give you some wonderful information about restoring your car, or what part works, or why this works better than that.
I agree with that, although I'm seeing fewer cars. There was only one foreign car at this whole swap meet, a Fiat 2000 Spider. It's really keeps drifting backwards to restorable ancient Americana.
Right.
And parts.
And there's a lot of foreign cars in your part of the world, so it's not as if there's not a lot of those type of cars there and the market's changed. They're there.
They're there, but I think they're going to bring a trailer or to other consignment things. There are so many more options to sell your car now than there were when this swap meet started.
Right. Well, and swap meets were not only finding the elusive part that you couldn't find, that you could all of a sudden, when eBay came along, you could find one on eBay that you had to pay a little extra for, and then you had to pay shipping for. But there was stuff that was there that you didn't even know existed that you would see at the swap meet and wouldn't know to look for on eBay or any other online site.
Right. There's what I love about a swap meet is the avocational moment where you're walking down an aisle and you see something that you didn't know existed, but you had to have.
Right.
And what I've learned, Stuart, my technique on swap meets is when you're walking down all those aisles, if you see something you think you're interested in, buy it right then on the spot and don't look back.
Yeah, because it'll be gone.
When you say to yourself, "Oh, I'll come back here later," it's not going to happen.
There is no comeback. It's the be-backs in car dealers that they never come back. Oh, we'll be back this afternoon. No, you won't. Don't tell me that.
I have to check with my wife.
Yeah, that's exactly right. At a swap meet, the good news about a swap meet is usually it's pocket money that the wife does or doesn't know about, and you can buy a part, and then you don't have to worry so much. And there's no. My problem is I can't use a credit card because my wife checks all the bills. She's the one who, and she's like, hey, what is this $12 here? I don't know. Yeah, give me $100 bill and break it, and I can not tell you where any of it went.
So I had my son bought a '98 V70 wagon, and I had him pay for it with cash.
Oh, that was a good lesson.
With $3,000, I had him count the $50 bills out on the hood of the car.
Nice.
And had the new owner recount the money. And then had him take the VIN and walk over to the car and check the VIN of the title against the VIN of the car. Some people commented on my Facebook thing. They said, people are still buying cars with cash.
Right. I think that there should be a Boy Scout merit badge for buying something like that in cash and knowing how to do that and count the money. And then the fact that you made him check the VIN against the title and against the VIN on the car, because I can't tell you how many wrong VINs there are. And it's one thing if you're a dealer and have ways that you can legal processes that you can do. But when you're an individual and you buy a car, it's got a wrong VIN, you could be up, what creek.
Yeah, well, at the very least, you're going to the local highway patrol to have VIN certified and a new temporary VIN tag put on your car. It's a bad deal.
So when you went to the swap meet recently, did you buy anything?
I bought a $5 Isetta.
That big?
Yeah, it was that big. I bought several Izettas at the swap meet, but I love Izettas.
Right.
But I really was I was by myself, and I took mass transit out there. I'm on my mobility scooter, so it was a pleasant. I prefer to go with my son because then there's two of us out hunting.
Sure.
And I was by myself, and I just kind of cruised. There was nothing there. I don't really need anything right now for any of my cars, and because we're downsizing our condo, bringing something home that's bigger than a golf ball is against the rules.
Right. You just can't do it. You're not allowed.
No,
well,
but it's the social aspect is wonderful.
I agree. The camaraderie of that. The thing I like about a swap meet is it's more fluid. If you go, there's what the success, I think, in my opinion, of Cars and Coffee versus traditional car shows is the fact that, A, you're not locked down for all day. You don't have to sit there on your folding chair behind your car from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. If you're at a swap meet, everything's kind of fluid. Parts are moving. The guy's doing this. You're moving. Same with the Cars and Coffee. Cars are coming and going. You're not locked in to be there all day because some of these car shows, they won't let you leave. If you come in, you're in for the day, pal.
No, when I've been MC at Concours, the biggest problem is getting people to stay till the end of the show.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's really kind of a discouraging when cars start lining up to leave while you haven't even gotten to best of show yet.
Right, exactly.
There are a lot of people who are not young who are showing their cars, and they've had to be there at 7 or 8 a.m., and they've been in their folding chairs in the sun all day long. There's a certain user cruel element to a formal concours.
Right. And no different with a swap meet. I mean, you're out there all day long in the element, which is what we as humans are kind of designed to be. I mean, we're supposed to be getting way more vitamin D than we're getting. Like I don't know anything about any of this, but we're outside creatures. We're supposed to be outside, but now you got skin cancer and yada yada yada, right?
The weather was fabulous, and I've been to the swap meet in pouring rain, and I've been to the swap meet, and when it's sunshine, it's just glorious.
Yeah, it really is.
Everybody's in a good mood.
Yeah, it really is. And there's some interesting swap meets. There's that one. There's the one in Hershey we were talking about. There's Carlisle that's right here. There's Wisconsin, Iola, Wisconsin has got it. I've never been, but everybody says that's one, and still pretty strong and prevalent swap meet that goes on there. No question about it.
They're moral, and they're also mark specific, like Pomona swap meets for VWs or Porsches or things like that. I was sitting on the train going out to the swap meet, and I was sitting next to a Mopar guy, and I guess there's something called the Spring Fling, which is in Southern California,
right,
which is where all the Mopar guys come together every year.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep up with. Thank God that in Sports Car Market magazine, you actually have a calendar that shows some of these events and when they're going on, and we can all kind of pencil in our calendar. So if you got a special offer for our watchers and listeners?
I have got the deal of life for you guys.
Nice.
Now, Sports Car Market has been $88 for a long time. Premier, we do well, people pay for it, but I'm going to give everybody watching today a special deal, 6 months for $19.95.
It's a bargain.
And you go to sportscarmarket.com/test drive and then the number 6.
I like it.
Sportscarmarket.com /test drive number 6.
There you go.
Get 6 months. It's the Wall Street Journal of car collecting. We've been around for 38 years. We have the best writers in the industry. And as I said to you earlier, it's as if you took all the trolls that were on Bring a Trailer and took the very best, smartest ones and had them look at the cars that were being for sale. Yeah, because we analyze Bring a Trailer sales as well.
Well, absolutely, because it's part of you can't ignore it. It's certainly unignorable, if that's even a word. I don't know. If it isn't, I've declared it will be a word today. So once again, always great to have you on, Keith. So glad that the weather's nice out there on the left coast, and we'll anxiously await next week's blog and something fun to talk about again.
It's great being here. I appreciate this opportunity.
Take care, Keith. We'll see you next week.
The Classic Auto Mall Show with their host, Stuart Howden, executive producer, Steve Sethier, produced and engineered by yours truly, J.R. Russ, video editor, Randy Lammy. Available on classicautomall.com, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Music courtesy of the Pat Travers Band. For tour dates, contact, and stuff, visit pattravers.com. Produced by Car Smarts Media. Copyright all rights reserved.